Sam here from Sugar Spun Run, and today we're making soft frosted sugar cookies. Okay, we've all had the cutout sugar cookies, you know, the ones with the royal icing on top. This recipe is quite different. This is a super soft cookie with a thin layer of buttercream frosting on top. I want to be clear, this is not meant to be a loft house cookie, you know, those grocery store cookies. I have a recipe that is specifically designed to be a copycat of that one. So if you're looking for that, check out my loft house cookie recipe instead. No, this is just supposed to be a really soft and tender frosted sugar cookie. All right, we got that out of the way, so let's get our oven preheating to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Grab your large mixing bowl and let's get started. All right, the first thing we need today is 1/2 cup or 113 grams of softened unsalted butter. Drop this in our mixing bowl. And we're also going to be adding 1 cup plus 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar. So this is 225 grams of granulated sugar. Now, I did publish a soft frosted sugar cookie recipe and I believe a video many years ago. And this is an evolution of that. Honestly, this is a new and improved version. It's just a more flavorful, tender cookie. And I just like this one better. So today's recipe could be made in your stand mixer. You would use the paddle attachment, but I'm just going to be using my electric hand mixer instead today. All right, let's go ahead and beat these together. Okay, so we're going to pause here. We have a nice light and fluffy mixture. You can see everything's nicely combined. The butter, there's no clumps of butter remaining. So we can go on to our next ingredient, starting with our eggs. So we're going to use 1 large egg for this recipe. Add that into my mixing bowl. And we are also going to use 1 large egg yolk. So I'm going to crack this, just pass that yolk back and forth until the white falls out. So for that white, if you don't want to waste it, you can use it to make candied nuts. They use my recipe for candied pecans, and I think I have candied almonds and candied walnuts too. They use 1 egg white, so you could check that out. Or you could save it to make macarons later. So this extra egg yolk helps make the cookie more tender and more soft. We were going for soft and chewy, and that yolk is going to help us achieve that. We are also going to add 1/4 cup or 60 grams of sour cream. This is a full fat sour cream. I suspect a plain full fat Greek yogurt would also work fine here. Why sour cream? So with my original recipe, I used sour cream, and it adds a nice depth of flavor, and it also adds like a nice tenderness, and I sort of want to say cakiness. The cookie itself isn't too cakey, but it borders on that territory where it's like very tender, thicker than your average, you know, like chocolate chip cookie, and it just like melts in your mouth. The sour cream is a big contributing factor there. Now for our flavoring, we are going to use 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. I talk about this in every video, but I love this little vanilla bean flecks that I get when I use my homemade vanilla. Now I'm also going to use a little bit of almond extract. This is optional, but a 1/4 teaspoon of almond extract adds a really nice flavor to the cookies. And you don't want to use too much. A 1/4 teaspoon might sound like a really small amount, but I found it's just the right amount to just add a little bit of extra depth to the cookie. Let's stir everything together. I'm not sure if the microphone is picking up on any of that construction, but I don't know if I mentioned this before. We are working on building another kitchen in the house in the basement so that I have a set up place to film these videos. Because right now this is quite a production getting these filmed in my everyday kitchen. So sorry about the noise, but I'm really excited about how that's going to look. And of course, I'll show everything to you when it's finished. We'll be filming down there, and if you are following me on Instagram, you'll get to see some progress shots along the way. All right, everything's looking beautiful and uniform here. Just going to slide these out of the way. Grab a separate bowl for our dry ingredients. So we start this recipe with 2.5 cups or 315 grams of all-purpose flour. We're also going to be adding 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, which is going to help give us that little bit of thickness, because these are like a nice thick, soft frosted sugar cookie. So cornstarch is great for that. And again, I think I've used the word tender quite a few times, but when you're making a cookie, you want that nice tender melt in your mouth factor. Cornstarch is going to help with that. We're also adding 3/4 teaspoon of baking powder and just 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda and 3/4 teaspoon of table salt. All right, get everything whisked together. Let's bring back our mixing bowl, and we'll gradually add the dry ingredients to the wet and stir until everything's nicely combined. Last bit of flour. Let's scrape the side and bottom of the bowl, make sure everything is well combined. Looks pretty good. And there is no chilling required for this recipe. We can go ahead and scoop and bake the cookies right away. Now I scoop these into 2 tablespoon sized scoops of dough. That's 40 grams. I'm just using my favorite 1.5 tablespoon scoop and rounding it. So getting to 2 tablespoons that way. Something I like to do with a lot of my cookies is I will gently roll the dough between my palms, but this is kind of a sticky dough. So if you just want to drop the cookies, you can, but you know, I want mine to look pretty for pictures and everything like that. So it kind of just depends on what you're aiming for. I'll do a couple rolled and a couple not rolled, but even though the dough is stiff, it is a little bit sticky. Have our rolled ones at the top, these 3 here. It's a little messy, but not too bad. All right, we'll take these over to our 350 Fahrenheit or 175 Celsius preheated oven. We're going to bake them in the center rack. I find these cookies need about 10 to 12 minutes to finish baking all the way. Okay, now as soon as these cookies come out of the oven, we are going to lightly flatten them. This is going to compress the cookie some, giving us an extra tender and slightly dense cookie. It works really nicely. And it's also going to give us a nice flat surface for adding our frosting. So I just take like a clean measuring cup, flat bottom, and gently flatten each cookie. And you can see the difference between the ones that we rolled versus the ones that we didn't roll. It's very, very subtle. So it's up to you what you want to do here. Okay, we are going to let these cookies cool completely on the baking sheet, or let them cool at least 10 minutes before you move them. They're going to be fragile while they are warm. Okay, so while the cookies are cooling, we can make our frosting, which I think I said is really just a classic buttercream frosting, and it pairs really well with the cookies. So you're going to need 12 tablespoons of softened butter. This is 170 grams. Now I am using unsalted butter. That's what I typically keep on hand, even though I've been thinking about switching this. I have a whole philosophy behind it that I'm not going to go into. But anyway, we're using unsalted butter and we're going to add a little bit of salt. If you only have salted butter, just use that and don't add any salt. I'm not sure if you can hear my kids screaming. It's happy screaming. Okay, so before we go any further, we're going to cream this butter with an electric mixer until it is smooth and creamy. It's going to make it easier for us to stir in the powdered sugar without having it make a huge mess. Okay, so for the powdered sugar, we're using 1.5 cups or 190 grams. I'm going to add this in, I think I'll try 2 parts. Ooh. We'll stir this in on low speed. Again, trying to keep from wearing the powdered sugar. Not usually very successful at that. You would really think I would wear an apron more often. All right, let's add the rest. Okay, and once that's in there, we're going to add just a little bit of salt. This is a 1/4 teaspoon of table salt and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. I don't put any almond extract in the frosting. Now, if you'd like, you could also color the frosting. I would do it at this point. So for the cookies that you saw in the pictures and at the beginning of this video, those were colored with a natural food dye. I used red food dye, but it looks nice in like a rosy pink when it's mixed. So I'm going to add a couple drops of this just for a nice pretty pink color. This is a natural food dye. This might be Watkins, but like your store probably carries a natural food dye as well. You know, whatever brand you use should be fine. I've been informed this is actually a Whole Foods brand food dye, but I know Watkins makes them too. I got it on Amazon, that's where. Maybe I'll try to link to it then. Okay, so you can see we have a nice rosy pink color. If your frosting is like too stiff, honestly, I would recommend just continuing to mix it until it's nice and smooth. But if yours just still seems too stiff, like maybe you accidentally overdid the powdered sugar, just go ahead and add like a splash of milk and stir that in. That'll make it nice and creamy. Okay, let's get these cookies decorated. Comes together really easily. So you could just spread this frosting right on top if you want. Sometimes I use a piping bag. I'm just using this cookie scoop to easily portion it. I'll drop that frosting right on top and then use an offset spatula to kind of swirl it. However you want to do this is fine. And then I'll add a couple of my sprinkles. Also natural food dye if you care about that sort of thing. These are natural colored sprinkles. I mean, I use regular sprinkles all the time. This is just what I use if I know my kids are going to be eating a fair bit. Bump up that frosting a bit. We're doing at least a tablespoon here. These sprinkles are so cute. All right, and that is how you make these super cute, super easy, soft frosted sugar cookies. I really hope you guys enjoy this recipe. If you try it, please let me know what you think. I really do always love hearing from you. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. That was a good cookie. Bonus tip for you. Flip your cookie over. See how nice and pale that is underneath? Very, very, very lightly golden. It's a sign your cookie is baked perfectly. If it's like a deep golden, good sign your cookie is overbaked and it's not going to be as soft as it should be. Okay, that's enough. Back to my cookie. That sounded weird somehow. Oops, that's gonna have to be picked up. All right, let's stir. My mixer's a little overambitious.